Welcome to Actual Scale Modelling. For my next build, I'm building this Revell Star Wars Snowspeeder, scale 1 to 29. This is a quick build. It's a basic kit. As you can see on the box, it's level 3 and it's a special edition. So let's have a look what's inside the box. Well, there's not much really. There's the engine supports here. We have the upper and lower parts of the fuselage, the main body, and the engine vanes, which the cockpit area, and of course the pilots. So there's the cockpit, sorry. And we have the weapons and engine thrusters, whatever they are. The canopy comes in two parts, one large part and one smaller part. Also in this kit you have a section of paints, a brush and some cement. These little paints, if you're not using them, keep them because they're good for mixing paints or indeed just topping up your paint pot. Decals give you two variants, the orange and grey one. The orange is for a common Snowspeeder and the grey one is for Luke Skywalker's Snowspeeder. In the instructions, it's a nice booklet with illustrations there to show you. So you have the paint list and ratios for mixing. You only have to mix one batch of paint for this, which I'll do, even though I don't really like mixing paints. On this occasion I have. On the next page we have the sprue layout and of course the paint guide for the pilot. The instructions are nicely illustrated. They give you the decal options as you go along on these instructions, but you can't put them all on at the end, and the back pages will show you this. So I'm just flipping through, and there's the decal options there with the two variants from the Luke Skywalker and common. Inside the kit we also have a little poster of the Emperor Strikes Back. It's on a glossy piece of paper, which is quite nice. There is a fold in it, unfortunately, but it's a nice little memento. So that's what's in the kit, and let's jump into the build. So to begin with, I'm going to be painting the figures. So the first paint going on is Revell Aquacolor 301 White Silk, and this is for the helmet. Next is Revell Aquacolor 35 Flesh, and obviously that's for the face. Then we have Tamiya's X26 Clear Orange, and that's for the visor. It just goes halfway between the helmet and the face. Next is Revell Aquacolor 378 Dark Grey, and this is for the background of the control panel that is on the chest. I'm using Revell Aquacolor 90 Silver and Revell Aquacolor 56 Blue, and these are for the control panel dials and switches. Revell Aquacolor 374 Grey is for the hands, and Revell Aquacolor 75 Stone Grey is for the boots. The band on top of the boots is Revell Aquacolor 06 Tar Black. Onto the main body now. The instructions are calling for Revell Aquacolor 25 Luminous Orange. Now I find this colour difficult to paint. It needs many layers and then it ends up looking heavy on whatever you're painting. So I decided to change it to Revell Aquacolor number 30 Orange. There's not much difference in tone and colour shift, but it's easier to paint in the orange than it is in the Luminous Orange. So once all the colours on, it was just a matter of a couple of little touch-ups to get it all right, and that was the co-pilot and pilot done. Onto the cockpit, and it's Revell Aquacolor 378 Dark Grey, and this will be the base colour for the cockpit. There's not much to the cockpit assembly wise. There's just one main part you have to assemble, and that's the backrest for the co-pilot and pilot, which they both sit back to back on. I'm using Revell Aquacolor 56 Blue and Revell Aquacolor 90 Silver, and these are for the instrument panel dials. Some of them you paint and some of them there is decals for, so I'm just painting the ones that I have to paint first before I place the decals on. So while that's drying, I'm moving on to back to the co-pilot and pilot. Now, depending on what variant you want to do, is depending on what decals you're putting on. I'm doing the Luke Skywalker variant, so the only difference decals here is the little red stripe that goes around his helmet, which I'm just placing on. And then it's back to the cockpit to place the instrument panel decals on. There's a couple to place on the side and armrests, as well as the instrument panel itself. I decided to change the colour of the headrest, so it's 371 light grey. Some of the pictures I looked at had a darker headrest, and some of the pictures had a lighter headrest. So I decided to go for a light version of the headrest, but it's entirely up to the builder what colour they want to go for really. To assemble the cockpit then, first of all is the middle partition, which is the headrest in. The location points are fairly straightforward to find and fit into, that you shouldn't have any problems. The pilot is next to go in, and then the co-pilot. It is tight though, so you may have to push down a little bit harder than you would normally do to get these in. Last to go in is the instrument panels, and these just fit in between the legs into a recess point on the cockpit. You shouldn't have any difficulty, there was no modifications required to get these in. Next is painting the main hull, and the colours I'm using here are the paints I have to mix. So I'm mixing Revell Aquacolor 75 Stone Grey 25% and Revell Aquacolor 301 White Silk 75%. And this will be the main colour throughout the build now. For the upper and lower halves of the fuselage. I'm using Revell Aquacolor 371, and these are for some of the underside panels and the lower half of the fuselage. These parts will be assembled later on. And it's Revell Aquacolor 378 dark grey for the engine and the vanes. You want either a small brush or a flat brush to paint this. To get in between the vanes, and try and make it an even coat, even though it's quite a difficult area to paint, but it is doable with a brush. And I'm using the same colour for the framework inside the cockpit as well. Now that's all been painted, it's time for the assembly. The recess points on this again are well truly finely marked. The only issue you will have throughout this kit is the tightness of the fit. You really have to press down hard to get these to fit. In some cases you may even find that you don't need any cement. As I said, this is like a basic kit for beginners really, so you don't need that much cement doing this build, if at all any. I mean, it was probably designed from a snap and click kit, but it does go together quite nicely. Next is to paint the canopy in the main fuselage colour, and I'm using my brush here just to take straight even strokes down the edges. You can mask this off, it's nicely defined and gives you good edges for masking if you wish to do so. There is one panel that has to be painted differently, and that's 371 light grey, and it's just a square little back panel where the gunner or co-pilot sits. So now for the assembly of the canopy. These two parts just go together with a little hinge, and then the closing off the hinge is a little piece that just goes on top. This allows you for the canopy to be open or closed. If you decide to have the canopy in the open and closed position so that you can move it each time, there's a little lip on the front of the canopy that will have to come off where my thumb is there, because it goes into this little recess point at the front and clicks in, but you do have to put a little bit of force into it to get it to go into position. You can theoretically get it back out, but it would be difficult. So I would take that little part off. Next up are the booms. These are a very simple assembly process. There's only a couple of little parts that go on for the tips, and it's just married up. You shouldn't have any problem. When you're putting them on, however, with the support strut, Be careful you're getting them the right way around. I didn't at this stage and I had to rectify it later on. I'm using Tamiya's Weather Masking C and the gunmetal component on this to darken some panels throughout the engine and support blocks before I assemble. The thrusters at the back are painted in Revell Aquacolor 75 Stone Grey. These are just tiny little dots on the thrusters. The thruster exhaust ports just get pushed on to this connection here for the support bracket and housing. Again, it is a tight fit, so you may have to push quite firmly to get it in. And once that's done, they just sit in at the back of the thrusters here. There's two little recess points that they go in. Make sure you just fit one end in first before you put into the other end. Don't try and fit both ends in together, you'll find it extremely difficult to fit. Starting to put on the decals now, and I'm going for the bottom half fuselage first. Now you can paint these in if you wish, but they do supply decals for them, so I thought, well, I'll just use the decals. It was then onto the top half of the fuselage for the decals. Now depending on what variant you're doing, because I'm doing the Luke Skywalker variant, I'm going the dark grey. If you want the common one, that's where the orange stripes come into play. Next is the rear engine and sub-assembly. These are just two parts onto the back plate before you put the back plate onto the main engine vents that you can see there. They push in. Again, it's a tight fit, but if you're firm with them, you'll be okay. I would recommend putting the two side parts on first before you put on the main part. It acts as a good guide, and it's easier to put on all around really. To fit the rear engine onto the main kit, the instructions allow you to fit it onto the lower half of the fuselage. I had a look and I decided to fit it onto the top half first, just because the location points are better defined on this half, and you get a better hold to set the unit. Now, as I done this is where I noticed I made a mistake. These support beams should have been on the other way around. I didn't really notice until I put the decals on. I noticed the decals were in the wrong position. It was an easy fix. They did pop off quite easily because I don't use a lot of cement as a rule. And all I had to do was clear the excess cement off, sand it down a little bit, and just touch up the paint before reassembling these support units. Once that was done, it's time to bond the two fuselages together. There's lots of location points here for you to help with this. It is a tight fit and you will have to press down quite firmly. You will also need a couple of clamps just to keep it in place. The edges will come apart slightly, although the body is rock solidly fitted and bonded together. So it's always better, on the side of caution, just to put in a couple of clamps around the edge just to make sure they're going to fit. Now, some of your sub-assembly parts may interfere with the bottom assembly as well. You may have to trim them off from the inside. Don't worry, you cannot see them, but if they stick out a little too far, they may impede in closing up the whole unit. So just trim it off with a hobby knife or a file and you'll be okay. Last to go in is the Harpoon Gun, and I painted that in Revell Aquacolor 7378 dark grey. Sorry. Later on I will put some weathering and markings on it. Next is a coat of clear polish to seal everything in. And now it's time to weather the model. First of all, I'm taking my pencil and just going over the panel lines. A lot of people use washers and other types of materials. I prefer a pencil. So I'm just going over, and again I'm using Tamiya's Weather Master C, the gunmetal component, to make marks and highlighting raised areas. So next I'm using Mix Armor's oil brushers, and if you've never used these before, they're a good addition for weathering. So these are the colours that I'm using: Steel, Starship, Filth, Dust and White. I'm using the steel on the engine and gun, and the white and other dust and stuff filth around the actual model itself. And how these work is, you take the brusher. Now it's already got a brush inside, hence the name. You put a tiny amount on the area that you wish, and then you take a brush and you dull your brush with a thinner, and then brush over onto the pigment, and this will add as a streaking effect and tone down the actual pigment. Now you can put as much on as you want, or take off lots if you want as well. All depends on you and how you do it. But the key thing is here, when you're using them, make sure you have varnished before you use them, because you're using a thinner to thin them down on the model. You don't want to take off your decals or anything like that. Well, this brings the build to a close. I'm building this in conjunction with an Star Wars Art Walker, which will be my next build, so look out for that. In the meantime, why don't you check out my channel and all the other videos that I've done. If you like what you see, subscribe to the channel for updates and so on. Hit the like button and leave a comment. But for now, thank you all very much for watching. Bye bye.